Question 49 is another example where we have quite a lot of information given to us in order to actually go and answer the final question. In terms of the answer itself, in the exam this would actually look slightly easier than it does on this screen, but effectively we have 4 boxes here to go and complete, but they would all be from drop-down lists. Back in the body of the question it tells us that we either need to select one of these options here as our answers, or if we believe there isn't anything to include, we would be able to select blank as an option. So looking back at the scenario then, it says we're looking at a group where RBE owns 70% of the ordinary share capital of DCA at the 31st of December X naught. They then go and purchase a further 20% of the ordinary share capital partway through this year on 1st of October 20X1 for $540,000. At that point it says the carrying amount of the NCI was $755,000. Dividends were paid by both group entities, $200,000 and $100,000 respectively, and what we want to do is go and complete that statement of change in equity that they've started by taking account of any movements that come into play because of this change of group structure. So what we've done here is go from a situation where there was a 70% relationship between the two companies and therefore an NCI of 30% to a slightly revised scenario where we've purchased an extra 20%, so our relationship is now 90, and there is still an NCI, but that NCI has been reduced to 10%. So when we think about the statement of change in equity, what we've got here is a column that's already been prepared for us with figures of the amounts attributable to the NCI, but this is based on the original 30% NCI. We need to therefore make some adjustment here to reflect the fact that the NCI is now just 10%. Similarly, this column here has been prepared on the basis that the parents had a 70% holding, and actually we need to make some adjustment to show that they've now increased that holding to 90% instead. So in this case we wouldn't expect an entry here, we wouldn't expect an entry here, and in the drop down list we would have selected blank for each of these two options. What we need to calculate is what we would go and pick for the other two entries then. So in terms of the NCI, it tells us that immediately before we purchased the additional 20%, the 30% NCI had a value of $755,000. What we want to do is reduce that by the 20% that we have now purchased effectively from that NCI. So we'll do that by multiplying this figure through by 20/30ths, and it'll give us an amount of 503,333. So from the choices that we have, 503 is now the correct figure. We just need to work out whether it increases or decreases that column. The NCI has actually reduced, so the proportion of value attributable to the NCI should also reduce. So the correct answer would be that this 503 should come into this box here. In terms of the final box for us to complete then, the adjustment to the parent's equity for the additional purchase, we're taking that same 503 and saying effectively what I'm doing is moving it out of NCI into the equity holders. However, in order to get that 503, we've had to pay an additional 540. So in actual fact, we are out of pocket by the remaining 37. So 37 is the correct figure. Once again, we can see in our options we have positive and negative entries. What we've spent is more than what we've actually achieved having purchased from the NCI. So the correct entry would be this negative of 37 to go into this box here.